Very good, thank you. So yeah, I guess we're not just putting a barn in for the sake of putting a barn, it's put a progression of our system. So I think Sheena had the 5 different systems, dairy systems up there yesterday, so we're already at number 4. We already do a PMR for most of the year. We're at a high stocking rate farm, over 4 cows to the hectare. And yeah, one thing that drought really, and when we did a SWOT analysis of the business, it really sort of showed that we're exposed to bought-in feed costs. 60 to 70% of our feed comes in on the back of a truck. So yeah, it's one of the threats to our business. Yet we've got these beautiful alluvial flats, and that's and we've got a huge water right. We've got access to the water. So yeah, we had the opportunity there to grow a lot more feed. But of course that meant under pivots, growing corn, growing crops. We can we can take what we've been doing, 12 tonne to the hectare to 36 tonne to the hectare plus. So we can triple our production, reduce our reliance on bought-in feed, but all of a sudden we need somewhere to feed cows. So we've got our feed pad at the moment, which becomes a disaster when it rains. And we put cows out into the paddock for somewhere to lie down. And when you've got 800 cows in a day like today, and they all want to be under a tree, we can't have enough trees. All of a sudden we get a group of cows under trees, stomping around, mud, humidity, mastitis through the roof. So we don't join here from mid-December to mid-March because it's just a waste of time with conception rate. So our milk production curve's not even. So when we looked at what our customer wants, which is Woolies, they want a flat curve, they want high quality milk, and that's something we can't do at the moment. So I guess that's why we started looking at housing our cows, and that threw up the question: free stall versus compost. So we spoke to a lot of people, both within Australia and overseas, about the two different types of system. One big difference here with this farm, it's a corporate farm. Corporates like to have exits. They always want an out. Also, all that land you see there is all zoned rural residential. So we've already got a 58 lot subdivision, all approved through there. So this may not always be a dairy farm. So all of a sudden, if we put a big shed in, if we build a freestall, it's always a freestall. If we put a big shed in, that compost barn, well, we can pull the cows out, we can park trucks in there, we can sell it to a horse stud, they can have an eventing arena in there, we can put walls on it and sell it as a commercial shed, we can grow medicinal marijuana in there, we can do whatever we like. So it's all of a sudden it's a multi-use building, and that went down a lot better with the bank too, that they sort of said, oh yep, no, you're not, all of a sudden they said, you're overcapitalising your property by doing that. But all of a sudden it becomes a multi-use building that they go, oh yep, no, it is adding value to your farm. If you went to resell the farm, all of a sudden you've got a commercial building on your farm. So that's just something to consider, and something probably a bit unique in our situation, being corporate owned, and also just the situation where we are. So I guess that's why we've sort of gone down that compost barn path. Also supplying Woolworths, we're very conscious of consumer perception. To me, a cow in a compost barn looks a lot more natural than a cow in a freestall. So there's a lot of horror stories about compost barns. We've heard them that shit hits the fan. Everyone we've gone to, we said. And like I've had a bit of experience in composting in the past, and it's a living system. You've got to keep it alive. If it gets too cold or too hot, the system isn't alive. If it gets too wet, too dry, the system isn't alive. So there's a range of parameters it's got to stay to. Everyone we've asked, so what moisture contents you pack? Don't know. What temperatures you pack? I don't know. So I think there's a lot to be learnt as far as managing that pack to make sure it works. There's a lot of levers you can pull too in a compost pack barn. And if it gets too wet, we can put cows out, reduce the stocking rate. It gets too wet, we can put more material in there. So there's different levers we can pull just to manage it a bit better. So that's something we determined to sort of trial that to try to make it work. So we're basically looking to put a 30 metre wide shed in that's 300 metres long. So it's going to be 9,000 square metres, 600 cows, 15 square metres a cow. And that seems to be the magic number. That's what works in Israel. There's a compost barn in Hunter Valley that's been going for 5 years. It's given us so much confidence that it's going to work here because their shed is humming. Similar climate to us. They've had no dramas. They've been in 5 years. They haven't had to take any compost out or replace. It's working. It's working. So it's given us so much confidence. A lot of the places we went to, they've got stocking rates of 6 to 8, up to 10, square metres a cow. Not big enough. Not enough. Not enough space per cow. Other guys, they'll put cows in, take them out. Put cows in, take them out. That system doesn't survive. It gets too dry. The system basically dies. So yeah, I think we've learned a lot, and no doubt we've still got a lot to learn. But it gives us a bit of confidence that there's still ways we can manipulate the system. Also, with our design, we've got one big shed area, and then we're going to have a 9 metre awning on this side, which is for feed alley and cow alley. So it's the external feeding. We get summer storms here, and she belts in from the southwest. So the big number one thing with the compost is don't allow it to get wet. So all of a sudden we've got 9 metres of concrete. If our feed gets wet, okay, it gets wet. But the main thing is not to get our compost wet. So that's one of the reasons why we've gone a little bit different to the traditional design you see, where you've got the centre feed pad with the cows each side. So we're just going to have our cows one big group with the feed and cow alley on this side. Another thing, this rotary is 26-year-old. It's not going to spin forever. When your cows are already in one group, it's pretty easy to put a set of robots in the middle of them. If you've already got a shed with a feed alley down the side, you already split your herd into two there. Where am I going to put the robots? I've got to put some that side and some that side, which creates dramas as well. So, yeah, I guess that's how we've come to that design, and why we've sort of gone for the compost barn path. So, time will tell whether we've made a mistake or not. And also with that design, it doesn't work. We can put a feed alley on the other side, cow alley on the other side, and the dimensions make it a 6-row freestall. So it gives us a bit of, we're not locking ourselves in. We do have plan B, plan C. Sorry? We're not putting it in day one. No, we're going to try to keep this thing spinning as long as we can. Or depending on, all of a sudden you go to the expensive robots. We don't think the cost of labour is there just yet. But I don't think we'll ever replace this with another rotary. If we put a new dairy in, I think it'll be robots. Yeah, so as I said, we're milking 800 cows now, but we're building a compost barn for 600 cows. So one thing you probably heard at the other station, traditionally we've been 100% joining to Wagyus. We go and buy someone that's exiting the industry, we just go buy their herd of cows, that becomes our replacements. It works out really well as a business, cash flow, everything else. But all of a sudden we're going for 10, 11,000 litre herd. We're not going to be able to go down the road and find a replacement herd doing that sort of production. So we made that decision 2 years ago to start rearing our own replacement heifers, and all of a sudden we need somewhere to put them. We get rid of our Wagyus, we can feedlot our Wagyus, but we don't want to be feedlotting heifers, so we've got to find somewhere. So as you can see, a lot of this farm we can't cut and carry. We thought 600 cows in the barn, that allows room, have dry cows, heifers running around, which consumer perception, we've still got cows outside. There's still cows on green grass. So it wins there. If we do buy a heifer block and dry cow block away, we can always have our late lactation cows as a grazing herd if we decide to. We can extend. Beauty of a compost barn is you can extend it, just make it a bit longer. So there's all those sort of things that we've sort of thought about and sort of factored into the design. So Yeah. Yep.
Obviously going from 12 to 6, on the plant in particular, the fertiliser aspect will be, I guess, a big question. Are you
Yep.
planning on utilising a lot of the solids from the barn?
Yeah, yep, like solid separator, we have solid separator, pond, that's the beauty of the pivots, you know, you pump effluent down and undersling the pivots with an effluent line. Yep. Yeah, we have. It's another thing we're real conscious of. Yeah, we knew we'd always find a market for our milk at the moment, but we, you know, Woolworths have been good to us, so we have to fill out a survey every year with Woolworths. One of the questions near the top of the page is what percentage or how many hours a day does your cows have access to green grass? So we thought, oh, here we go. We're going to have to find somewhere else to, you know, find another home for our milk. But no, we've sat down with Woolworths and discussed this is why we're doing it. You know, because of the floods, the fires, the droughts and everything else. You know, we want to make our cows more comfortable. If we make our cows more comfortable, they're going to produce more milk, blah, 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 blah. And no, they've been very open to it. They've been wonderful. That customer perception, yeah. And it's, you know, we're talking about it in the other groups. You know, it's you know, it's something that, you know, you see the Devondale ads on the telly. Our milk comes from 100% grass. You know, it's this you know, adage, you know, cows are better on grass. You know, and we've taken a heap of footage. You know, we saw it yesterday. What cows look like in the drought. What cows look like in flood. You know, we've taken a heap of footage here. You know, cows wading through mud. You know, lame archbacks. You know, we've had cows come in the summertime. You know, panting, and just drop dead from a heart attack right in front of your eyes. You know, when you're living with the cows, like, you know, that is just heartbreaking. You know what it's like. You know, trying to get cows to walk, it's just horrible. But you know, your consumer doesn't see that. They think cows should be on green grass. So you know, we've got all that ammunition in our toolbox. You know, in case we do need to use it. We hope we don't. And another thing we're conscious of. You know, we don't want to say all cows should be in barns. It's the only way to milk cows, because you know, we don't want to pit dairy farmer against dairy farmer. But you know, likewise, we don't want the New Zealand industry saying cows should only be on grass. You know, well, hang on, up here, in our environment, cows on green grass doesn't always work. Yeah, so we've spoken to a lot of guys, like Northern Vic. We went down, like we started looking into this two and a half years ago, when a lot of guys were starting to do their buildings down there. They were all budgeting on 40% increase lift in milk production per cow. We went back there in May for raising the roof, and now they're all into that system, and they're all doing it. They've all achieved 40% increase in production. Still on twice a day. We feed 23 kilos of feed here a day. You know, we're feeding for 10,000 litres, but we get 8. You know, so there's just, you know, with heat stress and walking, and you know, we're just losing so much somewhere. So you know, if we can pick up that efficiencies, we've worked out there's about a 3.5 year payback for the investment. So. Yep.
Yeah, just to comment on that, Simon, I think one of the things that can really govern your decisions around that is the topography of the farm. Where we struggle to change farms dramatically is often in association with hills.
Yep.
And you know, when you do the energetics, the hills are just profoundly damaging the cows. And so, you know, just in terms of business thinking, if you've got a hilly farm, think seriously about how this, if you've got a flat farm, think about how long you can maybe maintain a good pasture-based system that apply hills and creeks, and you're going to need seriously consider how.
And you know, especially when you see where our house is there and the flats below the house, she's a two and a bit K walk down there. You know, when do you walk them down there? Do you walk them down there and, you know, this morning and expect to walk them back this afternoon in the roaring heat? Or do you expect to walk them down there after, you know, PM milking when, you know, their bloody tongues are hanging out of their mouths? So it makes I'm no expert on climate change, but everyone keeps saying climate change. With, you know, we're going to see more extremes in temperature, extremes in weather. From what we've had the last couple of years, it's hard to argue with them. You know, these extreme events, if they're going to become, you know, and they just knock at this farm about, you know, and you don't, heat stress, if it's hot today, cows, all of a sudden it's a cooler day tomorrow, they don't just bounce back to where they were the day before. You get them back a bit and then they drop again. And, it's a gradual drop, and you don't get them back. So, yeah, it's no matter what you do. So, yeah, if this is going to become the norm, these extremes in temperature, droughts, floods and everything else, we've got to try to future-proof our business somewhat, and this is why we think we can do it here at Bungo. It's not going to be for everyone. We're already at stage 4 as far as our dairying system goes. So this is just the next progression. Yep. So we're looking at helicopter fans. What we've looked at, the barn I was talking about in the Hunter Valley, they've put a fogger through there with their helicopter fans going, and you can really see the air exchange. Air comes down, goes up through the vent in the roof, or out the side. They're getting their air exchanges. One thing, we're not putting the fans in for the cows so much. It's putting fans in for the compost, to manage the compost. It was interesting what Courtney was saying, like the difference between 60% fan speed and 100% fan speed. Like when we looked at the cost of the helicopter fans over the others, the other fans are more than double the price, and they're going to use 3 times as much electricity as what the helicopter fans were. And we've got to go, well, and all, they might be best for the cows, yes, but their running costs and everything else, are we going to see the benefit, or are we better off just to look after the compost? There's going to be airflow in there. The cows are going to be in the shade. Not sure. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So no time. That's. I'm not saying we've got all the answers, but this is just letting everyone know what our thought process has been. So yeah, you might all come back here in 5 years later and say, yeah, didn't work, did it, boys? But look, you're always going to have the naysayers. I think, I don't know whether I mentioned, with that design at 30 metres wide, we can put a feed and cow alley on the other side and convert it into a 6-row freestall if we need to. So we have, we've got Plan B and Plan C sorted out. So. Yep. Yeah, council's never said anything like it. And that's been hard. Like Victoria, has now got it's a ticker box cut and paste. We've spent an absolute fortune on consultants, but they are developing that system now. They've got national guidelines coming through. I think I mentioned we went to our council and they said, you've got to provide an effluent report referring back to the 2008 guidelines. Well, then we went to our effluent consultant and he goes, why are they dealing with the superseded guidelines? So we had to actually inform council, you're singing off the wrong hymn sheet. So, yeah. So, they've had an education. One of the big things was, even before they started looking at the plans, they contacted all our neighbours. And as I said yesterday, we've got 31 neighbours here for objections. And, I think that's their primary concern in our council here is, they had no objections to it, which we were very, when you see all these people around here, they're all looking out over our farm. You go and put a bloody 300-metre shed there. You think someone's going to object, even though it's not a viable objection for aesthetics, they can still make an objection. No one objected. So I think council after that said, yep, and we said we don't want to keep spending money on consultants and everything else if we've got no chance of getting this through. And they said, look, you have no objections. If you just meet all the guidelines and tick all the boxes, there shouldn't be a problem. We're all, even though we've got so many neighbours, they are fortunately a fair way away. So odour, sound, all that sort of stuff, they're not going to be affected by it. So, yeah. They don't care about that, unfortunately. Yeah. The council don't care about that either. So, yeah, yep. Yeah, flood wash. Yeah, yes, flood wash, solid separator, screen separator into 2 settling ponds. So we'll settle in one pond and have the ability to clean out the other settling pond, and then we'll have the wastewater pond that'll then be recycled. Yep.
Just getting back to the ventilation discussion, it was interesting how you said the costs of the other types of fans were significantly more than the helicopter fans. And I'd say anybody who's ever looking into fans to either help with aerating the compost barn or creating that fast moving air in the resting space, it's really important to look at the different fan manufacturers as well as fans within a company, because you might have a 120 inch or 120 centimeter fan and a 150 centimeter fan, and you think, oh, I'll get more bang for my buck with the bigger fan, but the efficiency might not be there, so the smaller fan would probably be better in having more. So really, don't just take for granted the size of the fan and think you're getting a better bang for your buck. Really look at the energy efficiency, how much output you are getting per watt of energy. So, and you know, the helicopter fans, I would say, you know, even in the compost bedded pack barn, even though it's not the for your system, it's not about creating air speeds in the resting space, I'd still, you know, think about that, space them 12 meters apart on center to try and cover as much as the bedded area as possible. The other nice thing, depending on what climates you guys are in, especially in the cold, we've seen barns rotate the direction of the fan so that in the winter, when air is pretty stagnant and we're not getting as much movement between the bottom and upper half of the barn, I've seen the helicopter fans move the opposite direction to just help try and draw air out of an open ridge. So yeah, there's not one way, like one is like superior other than the other. Really it comes down to operating costs, running costs, and how much output you're getting per watt of energy.
Yeah, you know, our consultant said if the Integra roof's the same price as a standard roof, go the Integra roof. If you've got to pay more for it, don't know. So look, you know, they've done their own research. They'll say, yeah, they look good. I don't know. Yeah, you've sort of, yeah.
Do you guys insulate your roof here?
No.
Any last question for Gordon or Simon? Or?